the most difficult time in my life was when I broke up with Ethan. When we met again, he had already become the CEO of the biggest entertainment company in the industry, with a new woman by his side. So, when he once again handed an award that should have been mine to a rising starlet, I announced my retirement from the industry. Calmly, I deactivated all my public accounts and disappeared from the spotlight. It wasn't until the following year that my manager discovered my drafts folder. Inside, there was a record of my illness and an unsent love letter from high school, long expired. Sophia, don't be upset. It's just an award. If Victoria got it, so be it. Yeah, the Best Actress award next year is the one that really matters. That one will definitely be yours. On stage, the girl smiled brightly as she accepted the trophy. During her speech, she mentioned Ethan. Ethan has always been there for me during my lowest moments. To me, he's not only my mentor, but also my greatest benefactor. The implications behind her words were crystal clear. Even the photographers were caught up in the drama. As Victoria accepted her award, the giant screen shifted to Ethan. His chiseled features appeared cool and detached. Dressed in an impeccably tailored black suit, he exuded an air of solemnity. Yet the faint trace of a smile at the corner of his lips hinted at something more, like a deity descending momentarily from his pedestal. Cheers erupted from the audience. The CEO and his award-winning starlet, this is too good to be true. He hasn't taken his eyes off Victoria the entire time. If this isn't real, what is? Victoria's gaze flickered slightly as she gripped the microphone tighter. If possible, she said softly, I'd like to walk the path ahead with him. All eyes turned to the big screen, watching for Ethan's reaction. He nodded slightly, a clear sign of affirmation. Victoria's smile deepened. As she descended the stage with her trophy, Ethan personally stepped forward to assist her. However, the hem of her gown was too long, and she had trouble walking. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with a feigned innocence and helplessness. Under the watchful gaze of the crowd, Ethan scooped her up in his arms and carried her down the steps. The girl blushed shyly in his embrace. But once out of the camera's view, Ethan's expression turned distant, his mind clearly elsewhere. I had no time to dwell on it. The pain in my bones flared up again, sharp and unrelenting. While the applause roared in the background, I slipped quietly out the back door. Leaning against the window in the dim corridor, I exhaled deeply, a wry smile tugging at my lips. This ending wasn't so bad after all. Why drag things out to a point where we'd only hurt each other further? I pulled out my phone and published one last post on social media. Due to personal reasons, this account will no longer be updated, wishing everyone a long and healthy life. Attached was a picture of my prepared retirement statement. My retirement announcement was completely drowned out by the trending news of Ethan and Victoria at the awards ceremony. Even before the ceremony, Ethan and Victoria had landed on the trending page multiple times, dining together, shopping together. He gave her the best resources. He showered her with all his favoritism and exceptions. Everyone was convinced that Victoria and Ethan were an item. And I, the heartless woman who had abandoned Ethan in his darkest hour, deserved to have my opportunities stolen time and time again. But no one knew that the night before, Ethan had pinned me to his bed, tormenting me until I was on the brink of passing out. Over and over, I succumbed to exhaustion, only to be forcibly kissed awake by him, his voice low and commanding. What's this? A year ago, you begged to come back, and now you can't even muster a few sweet words. He bit down on my neck, his anger barely restrained. Sophia, whether it's the past or the present, is it really so hard for you to tell me you love me? Ethan and I had broken up during our senior year of college. To be precise, I had left him without hesitation during the most difficult time of his life, right after his parents passed away. And a year ago, after a banquet, I had thrown myself at him, initiating our reunion. I was a washed-up actress. He was the CEO of the most powerful entertainment company in the industry. He hated me, even when he was drunk. He'd mutter about the way I had abandoned him back then. And when he sobered up the next morning, seeing me in his bed, his surprise quickly turned to cold sarcasm. "Sophia, it's been years, and you've learned how to climb into an investor's bed. What's next? Aren't you afraid I'll upload photos of this to the trending page right now?" I bit my lip through the pain. "Ethan, I'm sorry about what happened back then, but I desperately need the lead role in Diana's film. Whatever it takes, I'll do it." Ethan was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke only 2 words: "Get back together." When I agreed, I had my own selfish reasons. I wanted to spend whatever time I had left with him. #3, I got the lead role I wanted. Diana was thrilled. "This role was always meant for you. None of these influencer actresses can capture the depth I need. Only you can. But your condition..." Diana was the first person in the industry to learn about my bone cancer. We had worked on many films together. Though it was never explicitly stated, our relationship went beyond that of a typical director and actress. When she looked at me, worry filled her eyes. Not wanting her to worry, I lied. "The doctor said it was caught early. It's treatable. It won't delay anything." "That's good. If you feel unwell, promise me you'll tell me." "I will. After this project wraps, I'm looking forward to us working together on the next one." "All right." I lied to her again. This would likely be the last film I ever worked on. During the 3 months of filming, Ethan visited the set frequently. He would always be there to pick me up after work. After a few times, Diana couldn't hold back her curiosity and asked, "Sophia, is Ethan your boyfriend?" I glanced at him, standing there just like he used to in college, waiting for me after class. A gentle smile curved my lips. "Yes, he's my boyfriend." Diana sighed wistfully. "That's wonderful. Having someone like him to support you in this industry, I can rest a little easier." In those early days after we got back together, I was truly happy. I thought maybe fate had finally softened, allowing me this small mercy, letting me spend my final days with him. Until one day, a scandal surfaced online. A video of me from 5 years ago climbing into a producer's bed to secure my first role was leaked. It was explicit, uncensored. Ethan canceled his meetings and rushed home. When I arrived, the floor was littered with cigarette butts, all crushed but not fully extinguished. "Is there anything you want to tell me?" he asked. 5 years ago. That was the day I broke up with him. I didn't blame him for jumping to conclusions. Anyone would assume I had left him, a broke college student, to climb the social ladder with someone wealthy. "No," I replied calmly. He grabbed my shoulders, his voice trembling with anger and pain. "Sophia, do you even have a heart? You won't even lie to me." I stood there, lifeless, like a puppet. He left. He didn't come back that entire night. The next morning, the scandal was suppressed, but a new headline took its place. Ethan, CEO of Starry Culture, and popular actress Victoria, rumored to be dating Hash. Ethan never officially broke up with me. But from then on, every project I was attached to mysteriously fell through. Contracts were canceled for various reasons. Eventually, no one came looking for me anymore. This particular award was one I had been striving for. Recently, a film I had acted in was released, and discussions about my performance were lively. Amid the overwhelming buzz about Ethan and Victoria, my fans came forward to defend me. Some compiled a video showcasing my acting throughout the years. With the timing close to the Starlight Awards, many believed I'd finally win this time. But in the end, I only received a nomination. Victoria's acting doesn't deserve this award. There's no way this wasn't rigged. Rumor has it one of the judges has ties to Ethan. Guess he's just too biased toward his girlfriend. Their relationship is practically public at this point. And while I'd love for Sophia to win, I can't deny the CEO and actress dynamic between Ethan and Victoria is pretty intriguing. But I still feel for Sophia. She's worked so hard for so many years, yet she's never won anything significant. And wasn't she involved in some scandal before? Something about being linked to that failed heir from the Hugh family. Not many people in showbiz are truly clean. Is Sophia quitting the industry? Is that true? Probably disillusioned. If I worked this hard and still lost due to some rigged nonsense, I'd quit too. I read through every comment on the trending posts. Ethan, I wish you eternal happiness in your dazzling world of light. At the hospital, I finalized the paperwork for chemotherapy and inpatient care. When I reconnected to the internet, a flood of messages popped up. Ethan, Sophia, it's just an award. You're really leaving the industry for this. Lily, are you seriously quitting? Ethan's just infatuated with Victoria for now. You're the one he's loved since high school. Now that you're back together, your career in the entertainment world is bound to soar. A sharp pain shot through my arm. My fingers lost strength, and my phone fell to the floor. I picked it up, gritting through the pain. The reflection on the screen showed my current face, pale, haggard, and unrecognizable without makeup. I stared at it in silence for a while. I didn't reply to any of the messages. Instead, I deactivated all my public accounts, leaving only a private one with no connections. I thought I'd spend the rest of my days quietly. But I never expected to run into Ethan when I went downstairs to buy some necessities. His eyes locked onto my hospital gown, a mix of tension and accusation in his gaze. Sophia, why are you at the hospital? He demanded. His expression reminded me of that time in college, the first time I went to the hospital for bone pain. Back then, we were both poor. He was terrified I might die, terrified that poverty might claim me, just as it had taken his mother and sister. That time, the doctors didn't diagnose me with bone cancer. We all let out a sigh of relief, but this time, luck wasn't on my side. For a fleeting moment, the walls I'd built around my heart almost crumbled. From the moment I was diagnosed with bone cancer until now, I'd tried my best to accept the reality, to face life and death with calm composure. But the instant I saw him in the hospital, I realized I'd never truly let it go. I was scared of dying. I was scared of him knowing I was dying. I wanted to live. I desperately wanted to live. Why are you crying? Ethan frowned, a rare flicker of panic crossing his face. He instinctively reached out, as though to wipe the tears from the corners of my eyes. Sophia, are you sick too? Victoria came jogging over from a distance and naturally looped her arm around Ethan's. Ethan withdrew his hand immediately. Victoria glanced at me with concern. I know some of the doctors here. If you need, I can help you find someone more authoritative. Don't hesitate to ask. After all, you and Ethan were high school classmates. Her presence snapped me back to reality. I looked at her and said, "Congratulations on winning the Starlight Award." Victoria's expression tightened slightly. Sophia. Anyway, she quickly changed the subject. Ethan, let's head inside. Hanging around outside like this, who knows what kind of photos they'll take and how it'll get spun in the media. Ethan nodded, pressing a button on his key fob. In the distance, a sleek black Ferrari 458 flashed its lights twice. He'd gotten a new car. I turned and started walking into the hospital, clutching the belongings in my arms. But just as I stepped forward, Ethan suddenly grabbed my wrist. Before I could pull my hand away, he read the words on my hospital bracelet aloud, his voice trembling. "Bone cancer?" Victoria gasped and covered her mouth with her hand, visibly stunned. Ethan's composure began to unravel, his emotions breaking apart bit by bit. I yanked my hand back forcefully and managed a smile. I was thinking of using this as an excuse to leave the industry. What do you think? Judging by your reaction, you believe it, right? If even you buy it, the public will too. Ethan still didn't seem fully convinced. Victoria interjected at the perfect moment. "Sophia, if you're going to fake it, at least shave off that gorgeous long hair of yours. Otherwise, it's not very convincing, is it?" I brushed my shiny jet black hair with a laugh. "You're right. I almost forgot." Ethan's expression shifted from worry to anger. "Sophia, you're really something else." Ethan and Victoria headed inside. They went toward the obstetrics department. It was in the opposite direction of my ward. When I returned to my hospital room, I removed the wig I'd been wearing. The little girl in the bed next to mine, Emma, noticed and stared at the wig I'd placed to the side. "Big sister, can I try on your hair?" The nurse had told me Emma, a 15 or 16-year-old girl, also had late-stage bone cancer, just like me. I nodded and handed the wig to her. She carefully placed it on her head. Her already small face seemed even smaller beneath the wig. She tucked the hair behind her ears, revealing her youthful features, and smiled as she snapped a few photos on her phone. She looked beautiful. "Now Mom won't have to worry about me," she said cheerfully. "Thank you, big sister." The pain of chemotherapy was unbearable, pushing me to the brink of collapse. I'd lost count of the nights I cried silently in the dark. Emma, noticing how much I was suffering, often tried to distract me with conversation. "Big sister, do you know Victoria? She's so popular right now. I see her in the news all the time. She and Ethan are such a perfect couple, exactly the kind of love I dream of having in my next life. Oh, and did you hear about Ethan's ex-girlfriend? There's been so much gossip about her lately." I froze for a moment, but eventually shook my head. "Well, it's all in the past anyway. I don't get why people still bring it up," Emma said before heading off for her tests. I couldn't hold back any longer. I logged into my private account, the one no one knew about, the one that only followed Ethan. I opened the trending topics. The internet was in an uproar. Someone saw Sophia at the hospital last time. Her hair's still so long. She doesn't look like she's undergoing chemo at all. Joking about cancer. Karma will get her for sure. Why doesn't she just drop dead? Remember when there were rumors that Ethan dated her in high school? The story got pulled pretty fast, though. She's probably jealous of how happy Ethan and Victoria are, so she's playing the pity card now. Poor Victoria. Ethan better keep his eyes open. Judging by Ethan's reaction, it's over for her. Sophia will probably be out of the hospital soon, latching onto some other guy. Our Sophia would never do something like that. She's already left the industry. Can't you stop targeting her? I never expected that in this moment, the only people standing up for me were my fans. But now, I couldn't even muster the energy to speak up for them in return. The chemotherapy wasn't working well. The doctor offered some suggestions, but I'd already made up my mind to go home. There wasn't much time left. I wanted to see the world one last time. Before I left, I exchanged contact information with Emma. We made a promise. I'd send her photos from every place I visited. I'd send her postcards too. The world is vast. For someone at the edge of life, it offers everything, as if in one final act of kindness. I returned to the city where I'd attended high school. The city was small. The streets were narrow, but it was lively. There was a park next to the high school. At the start of spring semester, it was mostly empty, quiet, and still. I pulled my coat tighter around me and walked in, guided by memory. The wild grass and vines grew freely, unrestrained and bold. The old cypress tree near the school had grown even sturdier over the years. I sat on a bench, listening to the rustling leaves as the wind passed through them, feeling the sunlight trace its eternal path across the earth. In the stillness of the park, time seemed to stretch, and life itself felt elongated. Back then, whenever I had nowhere to go after school, I'd come here and wander around for a while. Here, I felt like I wasn't so alone, and I knew, every time I came here, Ethan was here too. He'd stay in a corner, out of my sight, silently keeping me company. With him here, I knew I wasn't truly alone. And I knew he likely felt the same, that he wasn't alone either. Maybe that's what companionship is. It's not grand gestures or words, but the quiet warmth of knowing someone understands. For two kids who had never really known love, it brought a rare kind of solace. I reached out my hand to block the sunlight. The painkillers had taken effect, so my bones didn't ache anymore. But they felt numb. Not warm like they used to when sunlight spilled over my skin. I squinted, my vision picking up a familiar figure in the distance. I thought it was just my imagination, but as the figure came closer, I realized it wasn't. "Ethan," I called out hesitantly. Ethan let out a cold laugh. "So, quitting showbiz brought you back here?" I forced a weak smile. I didn't have anywhere else to go. And well, I always end up here, don't I? I was afraid if I stayed any longer, he'd notice something was off. I got up, ready to leave, but he suddenly grabbed my wrist. In such a hurry to run away, feeling guilty, Sophia, I still didn't dare meet his gaze. That only made him angrier. "Sophia," Ethan said through gritted teeth, "if you were planning to leave again, why did you even come back in the first place?" It seemed like I wouldn't be leaving any time soon. I answered him calmly. "I needed money, so I came to you. Now I don't, so I'm leaving." I forced a smirk and looked at him. "You came all this way, what, over 300 kilometers to ask me that? Ethan, don't tell me you still can't let go of me. I'm engaged to Victoria." A sharp pain twisted in my chest. "Well, congratulations," I said flatly. "Is that all you have to say?" He stared at me, his gaze sharp, as if he were dissecting every flicker of emotion on my face. "I don't have money for a wedding gift right now, but if you need a bridesmaid, I can consider showing up," I said, my tone dripping with sarcasm. Ethan suddenly grabbed my face, his hand rough and firm. "Ethan," I said, my voice trembling slightly, "instead of blacklisting me, wouldn't it have been easier if I just quit on my own? Wouldn't that have saved you the trouble? You know me. I've always been like this, cutting my losses before things get too messy. Isn't that what I did back then too? Rather than waste time and money on something doomed, I figured I'd go after someone richer while I was still young. I just didn't expect you to get this rich, Ethan. If I'd known, I'd have stuck with you, wouldn't I?" For Ethan, the past was like a wound that had scabbed over but never truly healed. And I was intent on ripping that scab off, exposing the raw, unhealed pain beneath. Ethan let go of me, his hand clenched into a fist at his side. He spoke, his voice steady but laced with bitterness. "If you regret it so much, then come back." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Sophia," he continued, his voice low and cutting, "did you think quitting would make everything better? That you could just move on? The things you did, the mistakes you made, they should haunt you every single day, every single minute." His eyes were red, his expression mocking. "You've become exactly what you hated most, a worthless, pathetic third wheel." I shoved him away, my whole body trembling. "Ethan, what is your problem? You want to get back together with me while still stringing Victoria along. Now you're finally with her, and you're still hung up on me. 5 days, he said, his voice calm but firm. Ethan met my eyes, unflinching. Stay with me here for 5 days. After that, everything that happened between us, I'll let it go. 5 days of your time in exchange for 5 years of mine. Fine, just 5 days. I knew all too well what this was about. This wasn't love or longing. It was obsession. Ethan wanted me to be as broken and desperate as he once was. He wanted me to sink so low that even he couldn't bear to look at me, to regret every second he'd wasted on me, to feel vindicated that I'd left. If that was what he needed, then so be it. Consider it my final act of atonement, a way to earn some good karma before it was all over. Ethan brought me back to the old apartment we used to live in. It was barely 60 square meters. He had bought the entire building, but the apartment itself remained unchanged. The furniture was worn. The air conditioner was dusty, but the bed in the bedroom, a worn double bed, was spotless, as if someone still slept there often. On the bed sat my old, tattered rabbit plushie. Ethan's phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID and turned it off. I walked over to the bed and sat down. Turning on the air conditioner, I began unbuttoning my shirt. "What are you doing?" "Ethan, didn't you say you wanted me to be your girlfriend for these 5 days?" "Well, I'm just doing what a girlfriend does." Ethan glanced at my protruding collarbone and quickly averted his gaze. "You've certainly gone all out to fit the role." I raised an eyebrow and teased, "Seeing how pitiful I look, could you go a little easier tonight?" Ethan stood abruptly, looking annoyed. "I'm going out to buy something." Only after he left did I shrug on my jacket. Before walking out, Ethan locked the door from the outside. I chuckled bitterly, dug into my bag, and swallowed another painkiller. It hadn't even been that long since I'd last taken one, but it seemed they were losing their effect. When Ethan returned, he was carrying bags full of groceries. There were fish, meat, vegetables, and even a potted plant, slippers, and a toothbrush. 5 days. You didn't really need to buy so much, I said. Ethan glanced at the bags. It didn't cost much anyway. True enough. Ethan was no longer the boy who scrimped and saved in that tiny, run-down apartment. He had money now, lots of it. He rolled up his sleeves and walked into the kitchen. I sat on a chair just outside, fiddling with the sunflower plant he'd brought back, occasionally sneaking glances at him. His figure had grown broader, more solid, but his cooking skills hadn't dulled at all. Back then, I used to sneak up behind him while he cooked, wrapping my arms around his waist. He'd smile and pick up a piece of freshly stir-fried meat, blowing on it before feeding it to me. "Careful, it's hot," he'd say. Those were simpler times. We didn't have much, but he always made sure I was taken care of. Every bite of food, every piece of meat went to me. Now, I simply looked away. "Sophia," Ethan called out. Come help me." I walked into the kitchen just as he finished plating a stir-fry of green peppers and shredded pork. He picked up a piece with his chopsticks and held it to my lips, his tone indifferent. "Taste it, see if it needs anything." "It's fine," I said, turning my head away. "I'm not picky." He froze for a moment, then tossed the chopsticks into the trash along with the piece of pork. Whatever. The next 5 days passed quietly. Every morning, Ethan would go downstairs to the breakfast shop, buy groceries, and cook for me. His cooking hadn't changed much from before, but the taste somehow had. With my phone confiscated, I spent most of my time reading or napping. Occasionally, I played with a stray cat that liked to perch on the window. At night, we shared the same bed, but nothing happened. We just lay there, silently listening to each other's breathing until sleep claimed us. But I knew my condition wouldn't hold out much longer. On the last day, I finally spoke up. "Ethan, can we go out for a walk?" "Where to?" he asked. "Our old high school," I said. Ethan stared at me for a long time before nodding. All right. It was Sunday. The high school was mostly empty, save for a few students studying in the classrooms. Ethan handed my phone back to me, and I took photos along the way. We strolled slowly, letting the sunlight and breeze wash over us, and memories of the past came flooding back. Back in high school, Ethan and I weren't in the same class, but we were on the same floor. He was the class troublemaker, the guy who skipped class, got into fights, and did pretty much everything you weren't supposed to. I was the quiet one, the girl no one really noticed. My family situation made me an outcast. No one wanted to be friends with me. Whenever I stayed late at school to avoid going home, I'd often run into Ethan, who was usually there serving detention. He'd show up every day with fresh cuts and bruises, yet he always carried himself like he owned the place. Over time, we developed an unspoken bond, a kind of mutual understanding. Every day after school, I'd secretly hope he'd be there. When he was, I felt safe, and he was always there. For 3 years, he never missed a day, until the day everything fell apart. Word got out that I'd reported my uncle, Raymond, for assaulting me. But instead of sympathy, my classmates turned it into gossip. Uncle-niece drama? That's some spicy stuff. Yeah, bet she liked it and only snitched after she got bored, huh? Ha ha ha. Their laughter made my blood boil. I tried to shut them up, but they only mocked me harder, dumping a bucket of water over my head. Drenched and seductive, your uncle must have loved this, huh? I didn't understand. I wasn't the one who had done anything wrong. So why did everyone act like it was my fault? Ethan walked in just then, fresh from a fight, and heard the commotion. Without hesitation, he punched the loudest one square in the face. Then he turned to me and asked, "Wanna crash at my place?" Sensing my hesitation, he pressed a pocket knife into my hand. "If you don't feel safe, take this with you." I nodded. From that day on, I stayed with him. We went from being two wounded souls leaning on each other to something deeper, something real, until the diagnosis came, bone cancer. Since it all started there, I figured it might as well end there too. Ethan bent down and picked up a pen someone had dropped. I suddenly stopped in my tracks. "Actually, I've known all along that you wait for me here every day after school. And then you follow me home." I took a deep breath and turned to face him. "Ethan, I've known everything from the start." He gripped his pen tightly, holding his breath as he looked at me. "Sophia, what are you trying to say?" I fought through the pain and spoke. "Ethan, the 5 days are up. This is really the end for us. For the sake of never seeing each other again, there's one thing I need to tell you. I've never said I loved you because I never did." Snap. The pen in Ethan's hand broke in two. His eyes instantly turned red. "Sophia, what are you saying?" I looked at him, my voice calm and steady. "I don't love you. I never have. If you have any shred of dignity, please stop clinging to this, all right?" The pain in my bones flared up again. I ran out of the school gates. It didn't take long for Ethan to catch up. He grabbed my arm forcefully, making me stop. "If you never said it before, why are you saying it now?" I lowered my eyes and curled my lips into a faint smile. Maybe it's a guilty conscience. Seeing you so hung up on the past, it pricks at me just a bit. I couldn't quite make out his expression in that moment, but I could see his trembling hands hanging by his sides. "Ethan, I used you to escape my family, and when you were no longer useful to me, I chose to leave you. From start to finish, I've been lying to you." Before I could finish, a truck suddenly roared down the street. Its horn blared sharply. "The brakes are out. Move out of the way." My legs seized up, the pain rendering me completely immobile. As the truck hurtled closer, For a brief moment, I thought maybe it wouldn't be so bad to just die like this. In the split second before impact, Ethan shoved me aside. I hit the ground hard and lost consciousness. I didn't know how long I'd been out. When I woke up, the air was thick with the smell of disinfectant. CEO of a renowned entertainment company injured in accident, currently undergoing emergency treatment. Star actress Victoria remains by his side, refusing to leave. A nurse came over to change my bandages. I grabbed her hand urgently and asked, "Where's Ethan?" "Mr. Ethan is out of danger now, you can rest assured. But as for you, the cancer has already spread throughout your body. It's hard to say how much time you have left." I clutched her hand tightly, pleading, "Please keep this a secret, thank you." I asked for Ethan's room number. When I arrived, he was already awake. Victoria was by his bedside. "Are you still worried about Sophia?" "She's fine," Victoria said. "Focus on recovering. The media is all over this, asking how you got injured. Ethan, are you still punishing yourself for her? She doesn't love you. Everyone can see that she doesn't love you. Why are you still fooling yourself? The rumors are already spiraling out of control. Sooner or later, people are going to dig up everything about you and Sophia." Ethan's pale lips curled slightly. "Tell them to pull the stories. The doctors have been arranged, Ethan. Let's go back for treatment," Victoria urged. "All right." Ethan's gaze shifted toward the door. Instinctively, I hid behind it. "Ethan," a million stolen glances. "How could I not love you?" Ethan never came to see me before he was transferred to another hospital. He didn't ask about me again, either. Maybe it was for the best. I took out my phone and sent a photo I'd taken at school to a little girl's account. Half an hour later, her mother replied, "This is Emma's mom. Emma has gone to heaven. Before she left, she still thought of you. She said that if you ever messaged her, I should reply for her. She said she'll watch over you from the sky, hoping you can live as long as possible. Please take good care of yourself." I looked up at the sky. It stretched endlessly, vast enough to contain everything. I replied, "Take care of yourself too." My phone held countless photos from before my chemotherapy began. So beautiful, so radiant. There were even a few stolen shots of Ethan. I stopped by a nearby photo studio. When I went to print my memorial portrait, I printed those photos as well. Ethan and Victoria's engagement party was grand and extravagant. It stayed at the top of the trending topics for days. Around the same time, I received a text from an unfamiliar number. "As you wished, I will let go. I hope you take care of yourself too." I copied the message into my drafts. Then I added beneath it, "No matter where I am, I'll always wish you happiness and peace." I scrolled up. The drafts folder on this private account was nearly full. Ever since I left Ethan, I'd recorded every change in my condition, every detail of my life, and every memory of our past together. But none of it was ever posted. No one knew. And after I died, no one ever would. The painkillers had stopped working. But the closer I got to the end, the more it felt like there was still so much I hadn't done. Even the stray tabby cat that often came to scavenge food from me hadn't been fed today. I left, unsure if anyone would take care of it in my absence. And my funeral photo, who would I even leave that to? It felt like bad luck to give it to anyone. My agent, Diana, just as I was hesitating, my phone rang. It was Diana. "I finally got through to you, Sophia. Where are you right now? I'm coming to find you." Diana told me she had seen the news about Ethan. She was worried about how I was coping and decided to reach out despite our agreement to stay distant. "Don't blame me, okay? I've held back so many times from calling you, but I just couldn't." When Diana saw how frail and emaciated I had become, her voice broke, and she hugged me tightly, sobbing. Why? Why did this have to happen to you? Why, Sophia? I patted her back gently. I didn't want you to come because I was afraid you'd react like this. But now that you're here, I'm relieved. I thought I was brave enough to face this alone, but in moments like these, I realize I'm selfish. I wanted you by my side. I haven't worked for the past 2 months. Let me stay with you, okay? I nodded. Okay. But I didn't have 2 months left. Diana stayed with me, helping to find a new home for my tabby cat and taking over the care of all the plants I had nurtured. She told me she liked plants and would look after them. Every day, she wheeled me outside to feel the sunlight. But I was sleeping more and more, and my waking hours were growing shorter. I had no idea how much longer I could hold on. Diana was always patient, sitting by my side. If my naps stretched on for too long, she would gently call my name, trying to wake me. Raymond, for the first time, I addressed her by her given name. She looked at me in surprise. I've always called you Diana. I thought I'd try calling you Raymond just once. I've never had many friends. In these final days, you're the only one by my side. I've always been distant, afraid of bringing misfortune to those around me. But now that it's the end, I want to be selfish just this one time. Tears streamed down her face as she tried to stop me. Don't talk so much, Sophia. I understand. Save your strength and rest. I shook my head. Raymond, thank you for staying with me, but I don't think I can hold on much longer. Every bone in my body ached with every passing second. Now, death seemed like a form of release. I trust you to handle things after I'm gone. Keep it simple, and if possible, bring me a bouquet of flowers each year. That would make me happy. As for Ethan, please keep this from him for as long as you can. Ideally, he should never know. If he does find out, tell him that I was the one who wronged him first. I hold no resentment for anything he's done to me. You still love him, don't you? I forced my eyes open and with the last of my strength whispered, I do, but he doesn't need to know that. Another spring equinox. I could feel the warmth of the sun once more. Ethan, may you live a long, long life. Ethan returned home after a long, tiresome day at work. For some reason, his chest felt tight, as if something heavy was pressing down on it. From the study, he suddenly heard a sharp crash. He opened the door to find the wind howling through the window, which had knocked over a potted plant on the shelf. It was the bamboo palm Sophia had bought the day she came back. Ethan knelt down to clean up the shards of ceramic and spilled soil. Just then, his phone rang. Ethan, have you seen the trending news? There's a photo circulating of a little girl who died of bone cancer. Her family posted it online, and one of the people in the photo looks just like Sophia. Ethan froze, panic setting in. He quickly unlocked his phone, searching for the photo. Zooming in, his heart sank. The little girl was wearing a wig, the same style as the hair Sophia had when he saw her at the hospital. Sophia, in the photo, looked gaunt and frail, almost unrecognizable. But when he had seen her after that, she hadn't appeared sick at all. It took him only a moment to understand. Sophia, who had always been so obsessed with her appearance, must have gone to great lengths to conceal her illness. Ethan's eyes reddened, tears welling up as he frantically dialed Sophia's number. No answer. He tried calling her agent. No response. Without hesitation, he rushed out the door, desperate to find her. But in a city so vast, where could he even begin to look? He ended up at their old apartment. Lying on the bed they had once shared, he felt an eerie sense of calm. For so many years, without Sophia, he had suffered from severe insomnia. Only here did he feel any semblance of peace. On the desk, he noticed a piece of paper. A phone number was scribbled on it, though it had been crossed out. It was his only lead. He dialed the number. It was Raymond who answered, Sophia, she hasn't left. Sophia will stay here forever. 2 years have passed since Sophia's death. Ethan survives each day by clinging to the cruel words Sophia had once said to him. He lied to himself, saying that Sophia didn't love him, so he had no reason to care so much about her. Until one day, his agent received a phone call. The caller claimed to have accidentally inherited Sophia's old phone number, and upon logging into her social media account, discovered the drafts in her account. Inside were records of everything she had been through since her illness. The agent decided to make the contents public. 5 years ago, Sophia was just a newcomer in the entertainment industry, taking tentative steps into the limelight. She had been set up and sent to the bed of the young master, Ethan, but nothing had actually happened between them. Not long after, she was diagnosed with bone cancer. At that time, Ethan was going through a dark period in his life. She couldn't bear to see him sink any deeper, so she forced him to grow by breaking up with him. She had hoped to recover from the cancer and meet him again someday, but fate had never been kind to her. Her bone cancer worsened. Countless declarations of love had been on the tip of her tongue, yet they were always swallowed back, weighed down by the harsh realities of life. Among the drafts was also a love letter. Dated 10 years ago, she had written it in her sophomore year of high school. Ethan, I love you, no less than you love me. Around the same time, Victoria made a public statement. She and Ethan had never been together. That love letter, Ethan read it countless times. Asterisk Sophia, if only I'd known, I wouldn't have resorted to such clumsy tricks to make you love me. But now, I can't grant your wish. Asterisk, I'm coming to find you.